SJ, welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar.
It's Jay, Estongo, everybody. I know you heard that introduction saying Gary's in here, but it's just me today, Morgan. So I hope you have a good cold Wednesday. It should get a little bit warmer. Today, I have a couple special guests with me. We got Billy Haltom with the Ag and Natural Resources, and he is the manager of the Ag Youth Program. And Billy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of talk about what it is you do for the program?
Sure. My name is Billy Haltom, and again, I'm the manager of the Mvskoke Nation Agriculture Youth Program. We're a program that provides opportunities to 4-H and FFA through our local school systems, as well as the county and local 4-H programs. We are involved in anything from livestock showing to leadership to speech contests to archery contest, and now we are endeavoring into the shooting sports field. So we're a very diversified program, and we try to incorporate that and try to increase the activities that we have for our Creek youth.
Well, that sounds really exciting. It sounds like you guys get into a lot of activities that, a lot of kids are kind of losing some of that outdoorsy stuff, but I understand you guys have some big events coming up, some big activities. Do you want to kind of talk about that?
Sure, Morgan. We are preparing for the 9th annual Mvskoke Nation All-Indian Livestock Show, which again we started whenever I first came to work here, and it's hard to believe that we're getting close to doing it for double-digit years. We're a year away from our 10th anniversary, but it's an event that has really taken off for us, and it's by far the biggest activity that we do through the course of the year. Our date every year is the last weekend of January, so this year it will be the 28th, 29th of January. Our base, or where we have our show out of, is the Okfuskee County Fairgrounds in Okemah. We are very fortunate to be involved with that community and that group from the Fair Board, which lets us use that facility basically for nothing, to the Okemah FFA chapter that helps us set up and break down those pens, because without those volunteers or that additional support from those outside organizations, it's just an event that wouldn't happen because it's just too much for one person to do.
Oh, yeah. It sounds like a lot of activity going on at once, for sure.
Yes.
Kind of seems like you guys have some heavy roots down in Okfuskee County.
Well, we have a large contingent of Creek youth there, first of all.
Yeah.
And second of all, with us having our livestock show and having had it down there for the last 8 shows, our initial show we held in Okmulgee, and other than that, we've been down there in Okfuskee County for the last 8 years. So we've developed a pretty good relationship with everybody in Okfuskee County, native and non-native.
All right. And so how does a livestock show go? If I was going to be a student and I had, an animal or two, how would that go?
Well, let's just talk about that. We'll go with a pig. Let's say you are a student and we're interested in showing a pig. Well, we would actually purchase that pig is going to be born sometime in August or September. And about October, you're going to purchase that animal. And of course, then it's the students and the parents' responsibility to make sure that that animal is fed, well cared for, blah, blah, blah. And that's also where I come in to kind of supervise a lot of that feeding and oversight whenever it's needed, whenever we have young people that don't have somebody in that position. But we would feed that animal basically, so you're investing for several months, and again, about the 1st of December, we'll start going to a few livestock shows, and it requires everything from feeding and watering and providing a good shelter to it to daily exercise. Those pigs are just like any other animal. They have to be trained to be a show pig. So there's a lot of hours spent at the barn driving those pigs. And when I say driving, we're showing them with basically a short stick, a 3-foot rod of some kind. And that pig is trained, so that young person would be responsible for all of those things. Then, of course, there's the actual getting to the livestock show, getting the animal weighed in at the livestock show, paying our entry fees, then the actual show itself. That doesn't even take into the amount of bathing and washing and clipping and all the other good things that go along with each one of those animals.
So when if I was showing my pig, what is it judged by? Appearance, cleanliness? Does it do tricks? You know, what is it? What's that?
We're going to throw the trick deal out, but it is based on their physical characteristics. You know, basically these are animals that will be entered into the food chain. So meat is what we're looking for, and meat equivalent is the equivalent to muscle. So we're looking for pigs that are heavy muscled. We want to have a big top and a big tail end in them. They've got to be sound as far as being good on their feet and legs. So it's a wide variety of characteristics, and it's not sometimes. I would like for people to come to the pig show because it's not what you think when you think, oh, they're showing pigs. It's a very, very intense showing competition. You know, there's a lot of money invested through the kids. Even if they didn't give a lot of money for their project initially, there's still a big investment there. So the intensity of a pig show is maybe underestimated.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, for me, I wasn't, we were talking about this earlier. I wasn't really raised around a lot of farm animals, cows, yes. But I did have a friend, and she did show chickens, and they were very mean. And I was like, why do you do this? Is this fun to you, Because we would go get the eggs, and then they would attack us and poop on us.
Why, sure.
All the good stuff. So how's a chicken shown? I know that's a thing.
Yes, and we have a program also that helps our young people with a small animal. It could be a rabbit, a chicken, a goose, a duck, whatever it might be. We call the small animal portion of the agriculture youth program. But listen, those people that show chickens are just as intense and just as serious about that chicken or poultry as they are with a hog or a calf or any of the larger animals. And if you've ever been to a poultry show, I mean, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of birds there.
Oh, really?
I'm not a poultry expert, but I have been. We have put on a poultry show. It was really educational, very informative, and for a person like me that's not that familiar with the poultry industry, it was extremely eye-opening.
Well, that's what I was about to say. It sounds like an experience where you could really learn something.
Extremely educational.
Everything's there, yeah.
Extreme.
So what are the other animals that are at a typical livestock show or that will be coming to our livestock show? Yes.
Well, of course, we'll start with Friday night at our livestock show. On Friday night, we show the sheep and the goats, okay? And we do that on Friday evening. Then we get there first thing Saturday morning, and we will start with our hog show, and we show 2 different varieties of swine. We have a market hog show, which is for those animals that basically we will use to produce food or enter the food chain. Also, we have a breeding gilt show, which judges the female swine on basically their characteristics as far as becoming a mother or a sow in the future. In other words, an animal that's going to reproduce and produce offspring. So we have 2 different competitions in the swine division of our livestock show. And of course, we've gotten so big that we actually have to start showing our cattle on Sunday afternoon. And we have a heifer show and a steer show. So those are the 4 the species of animals. We have the sheep and the goats. We'll have 2 divisions of different swine showing, I should say, and then we'll have a steer and a heifer show.
Okay, so a lot of little competitions and opportunities right there, huh?
Yes.
Yes, sounds
Yes.
like fun. I know that you're having it in January, but this last year you had to have it in August. How was that?
Well, we've had to accommodate COVID just like everybody else, and of course last January the numbers were out of sight, so we did postpone our livestock show, and as we were talking earlier, we had already purchased our belt buckles, which we give away 35 to 40 belt buckles a livestock show, so that's a pretty good expense. So we already had those, so it was imperative that we reschedule. So the only good time to reschedule where we would have all four of those species of animals was August, because people are preparing at that time for the Tulsa State Fair.
Oh, okay, I see. So it
that
kind of
was-
coordinated.
That was how we coordinated the August date.
Okay, yeah. Sounds like it was hot though.
It was
January to
extremely
August.
hot.
Yeah.
It was just the opposite of what we have in January.
Right.
In January, we're looking to close the doors and turn up the heater, and up there we had the fans on, we had the doors open, and we couldn't cool them down fast enough.
Oh, I bet that was a lot of smells.
It was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun, a lot of fun, a lot of fun, a lot of. Hey, if it's not fun and smelly, then what is it?
There
know?
you go. It smells like money.
Like money. Okay. Hey, you're probably not wrong. So, what are the money opportunities at a livestock show?
Okay, I'm proud to say that we are 100% payback in our livestock show, and what that means is those kids that, say, for instance, are showing a sheep and they pay their $20 entry fee, we pay 100% of that money right back to the winners. And we have a formula that it's based on, and it can be anywhere from over $100 to $20 or $25, depending upon if we pay 1, 2, 3, or 4 places, depending upon the number of entries it's all based on. The grand champion, or the big prize winner in each one of those species, will receive $250 cash, or not cash, we send them a check.
But you can cash that check.
$250, yeah.
Hey, that sounds like a pocket full of money right there.
Yeah. And we also pay the reserve grand will receive $200, the bronze overall, or the third best in each of those species, is $150. So we try to really do what we can. Unlike a lot of the livestock shows that they have to make a little bit of profit, the good thing about ours is we're not trying to make any money. We're there to provide a service and an opportunity for young people. So it is so much better because we don't have to watch our bottom line, so to speak.
Right. I get that, and that's awesome for those kids. And I know you said earlier that you kind of assist kids with hands-on stuff as far as taking care of their animals and stuff. Can you kind of explain a little bit
Sure.
of that role you play?
We in the Mvskoke Nation, we are looking at 8 counties. So within those 8 counties, there will always be some young people who are not enrolled or do not have the opportunity to be enrolled in an FFA program, and they really don't have somebody to oversee or make sure that they're caring for their animals and that they have the everything that they need. So that is where I come in. That's one of the jobs or one of the duties of my job is to go out and I'll do anything from helping them select an animal, whether it's a calf, a goat, a sheep, or a pig. I will go with them and actually oversee and make sure that they purchase a quality animal. And then through home visits, I will make sure that those animals are maintained and good husbandry practices are formed. And also, I do it, but the program, we are able to haul those young people that don't have access to trailers or equipment. We're able to haul them to livestock shows, and I help them fit and groom their prospective animal and get them in the ring, and it's just a real pleasure to see them. We start with them, and some of them have never shown anything before in their life, and in just a couple years, they're just almost trained professionals, and it's just really a blessing to watch that.
Yeah, that's amazing, because I'm sure for some kids it could be a little discouraging, when you don't have access to all that stuff.
They have to have outside help.
Yeah.
Outside help. They need a little bit of support, and a lot of them it is strong parental support, and it always takes strong. But a lot of parents don't know a lot about livestock, so they kind of need somebody to come in there as a livestock advisor, more or less, and helping in those areas.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It's my favorite part of the job.
So you said you do some home visits and stuff. What do you ever have emergencies where they're like, you know, I gotta get
On
to
a
the
weekly basis.
Oh,
I have
really?
emergency. I had an emergency call yesterday. Went
How
to
was that?
Eufaula, checked on some. They were fine, but it's always good to go and see. I always tell my people, be sure and let me know if you think something's wrong. I don't care if it's a sneeze or a cough or a cold or what, because we want to nip anything like that in the bud. We don't want that getting started. So I go on emergency calls almost weekly.
Wow, that's hilarious. Well, not hilarious, but so has there been an instance where you've had to get an animal to the vet real quick or anything like that?
Again, almost weekly.
Wow.
It's, you know, and a lot of that is not so much me as it is parents that call me and say, hey, this is happening, can you come look and see?
Yeah.
And then I will go and give them my evaluation of it, and then we can go from there whether they need to go to the vet or whatever. But, you know, if you have enough of them on feed, some of them are going to get sick and something's going to happen. So they're just like kids. Eventually they have to go to the doctor.
My kids are always sick or something's always wrong, I swear. So you said you had about 300 people in our kids.
We're tickled to death that our enrollment right now is 310 young people.
Wow, so I bet you do get calls all the time.
We have a lot of calls.
So where is your highest volume of youth?
My highest volume of youth as far as what enrollment wise is probably Creek County. We probably have more just pure enroll. Now, I'm not as involved with as much of those kids as I am in, say, McIntosh County or Mvskoke County, where we still have big enrollment numbers, but I have kids there that are fit that scenario where they need me to help them a little bit more. You know,
Okay,
they
I
need
understand.
some outside help.
I understand. Yeah, you got a little bit more neediness down.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And those are where the real country kids are. I can tell you that right now.
Oh, that's for
McIntosh
sure.
and Mvskoke County.
And a lot of these kids, the younger kids, you know, they start off in 4-H and they really kind of need my help. And then as time goes on and as they mature, of course, eventually they become enrolled in FFA, and then they have an ag teacher, so it lightens my load there too.
Okay, so what are the major schools that you work with around here?
Oh, sis, we're in
All of them?
almost every school, yes.
Do you work heavily in Okmulgee?
Yeah, I go see Mr. Taylor on a regular basis.
And we were talking earlier. See, I grew up in Henrietta, and then we had none of this.
Right.
But they've recently got it started up. So
Yeah, I think this is their 4th year. I know Brooke Smith is their ag teacher, and I think this is Brooke's 2nd year down there. So and Cody was there for a couple. So I think they've had it for 4 years. But I was down there just the other day helping them score some archery. They were shooting some archery, and I helped them do their official scoring for them so they'd have an unbiased score. So.
wow, that sounds so fun. Let's talk about the shooting sports, because you guys have some programs for that too, right?
Right. We have been doing the archery ever since for the eight years that, and before I was here, we've been involved in the archery. But shooting sports, as far as shooting trap, clay pigeons, that type of thing, has become extremely popular. I mean, again, through 4-H and FFA. So going along with that theme, we have tried to incorporate that into our own program. We've already had our training through the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife. A matter of fact, through the Wildlife Department, were able to accumulate equipment, trap throwers, skeet. Matter of fact, they're bringing us a gun safe Tuesday the 28th. So
That's amazing.
yeah, so we're really looking forward to this spring really getting heavily involved into the shooting sports part of our program.
All right. So what is it that you have the kids do in the shooting programs?
Well, I don't know how familiar everyone is with shooting trap or skeets, but trap is clay pigeons, basically, or artificial birds that are thrown through a launcher, and it's just basically a intense hunting type experience without actually having live birds. And this has gotten so big, Morgan, that these kids are going to school on scholarships for trap shooting, for shooting skeet. Now, this is not just something that we're doing for fun. We do it for fun, but it's educational, and it is a way for a young person to go to college.
Wow, I didn't know that it was becoming such a big sport in that sense.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it sounds like fun. Sounds like a 12-year-old boy's dream.
Well, we talked about, kids don't go outside and they're not as
Yes.
involved outside, and this is just a great opportunity for them to become familiar with that, and it really just germinates their thought, well, I might start wanting to go hunting and blah, so it germinates a lot of things for them.
So do you guys provide gun safety trainings? Do you purchase guns and hold them for? How does that work?
We of course, we're in the infancy of our program, so we haven't purchased our firearms yet. But after we receive our gun case, our gun safe, and everything, then that will be the next step. The firearms will be purchased. We will keep them and it will be located at the Light Horse Police Department on top of that. So
Super safe.
Super safe.
Yeah.
Everything about it is safety oriented. Yeah, and then of course the young person, when we first start, that we will have some training as far as safety and what's expected of them, and they'll have to have their parents there and consent forms and all that good stuff
Before they can ever
do anything.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I understand
Yes.
that. You got to be super careful nowadays for sure about stuff like that. So what are some other things that you guys have going on in your program?
In the past, we've always put on a 4-H speech contest, but due to COVID, we haven't been able to do that. That's something that we're really looking forward to getting started again. It's public speaking is just so beneficial to those
yes.
young people, so we try to provide that opportunity. In the past, we've gone to Washington, D.C. in the summer, and again, COVID has slowed that down, but I'm really looking for us to maybe be able to do that trip again this summer. Cross our fingers.
I hope so. Washington, D.C. is a beautiful place.
Oh, and it's so educational. We were there 2 years ago of course, we were in D.C. for 3 or 4 days, and just the opportunity for those kids to get to see the grandeur of the Capitol building and the Smithsonian's, and it's just really something that's extremely important and valuable for our young people to be able to see.
I agree with that. And so after the livestock show, is there any other activities you guys will be holding or hosting?
Well, we won't really be hosting any, but when our livestock show is over, we will continue to show livestock. We're into the heart of our livestock showing season. We will show livestock almost every weekend from then till the middle of March.
Yeah, you said you had been
and we've already been going.
Yeah,
too.
you said you had been hauling some kids here and there. Yeah.
Yes.
So you spend a lot of time outside of working.
Well, a lot of the things that I do happens after 5 o'clock and on the weekends, and that's just the nature of it. And
well, I guess if you enjoy it.
You never look at it as work.
Right. And so let's talk. We got a few minutes here, so let's kind of talk about your background. You said that FFA in high school is really where you kind of received your passion for this type of work.
Listen, I come from a non-agriculture background. My dad is retired out of the Army. I come from a large Catholic family. I've got 5 sisters and 3 brothers. There's nothing agriculture related about any of us. But through my involvement with FFA in high school, I immediately knew that this is what I wanted to do. And of course, I went to college. I've taught ag for 10 years before I come over here and did this. But I am living proof that a person does not have to come from an agriculture background. We never owned cattle. Other than horses, we never had any type of livestock, so to speak. But through my involvement in FFA, I had an excellent ag teacher. I mean, just salt of the earth, and what he has done for me during that 4 years of my early life was just, I'll never be able to repay him for it. I mean, it's just been a lifelong advantage for
Sounds
me.
like he was very instrumental in the person you are.
Oh, extremely so.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you grew up in McIntosh County, right?
Yeah, I was from Eufaula, so yes.
Yeah, you probably had a lot of exposure to it. Yeah. Well, Billy, we just got a couple of more minutes here. Is there any maybe kids wanting to get involved in the program, FFA, 4-H, any kind of contacts you can give for those?
Yeah, sure. You can contact me at 918-732-7628, or you can email me at wholtom@MvskokeNation.com. or you can just call the Creek Nation and they can direct your phone call to me. But we, as proud as we are of our program and as many kids as we have, there's always those that we're not getting to. So those are the ones that, if I could end with anything, it would be that if you're out there and you're not familiar with this program and you're involved in these activities, we're here to help you both financially and professionally.
All right, Billy. Well, I appreciate you coming in this morning. Even though it was last minute, I'm glad Trent sent you here. Very good.
Thank you.
All right, guys. We're going to take a little break here, and I'm going to put on a little service announcement for you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angela King with the Stroke Prevention Program. With the support of the Southern Plains Tribal Health Board and Mvskoke Nation, we want to help Native Americans in our community lower their risk for stroke and heart disease. 80% of strokes are preventable just by reducing health-related risk factors. If you are interested in how to reduce your risks, please contact me at 539-299-1530.
All right, everybody, I'm back. I'm currently waiting on my next guest. We're supposed to have some people from the election board, and they're going to talk about this past election. There was a little bit of controversy during the election, as there always is in every election. And we were just going to kind of talk about some numbers. To be a tribe with such a high amount of people, we have a very low amount of voters. We have about anywhere from 80,000 to 90,000 Mvskoke citizens who are currently registered. And then we probably, I'm not sure the exact number, but I know that we had less than 10,000 voters. Maybe around 7,000, and I might be wrong about that number, but that's less than 10%, or right about at 10% of voters. Then there was an issue where some votes had gotten lost. And so we all kind of experienced this little bit of craziness, especially in my department. It was a big topic. And so I was kind of hoping to touch on that this morning. Maybe I can give him a call. Okay.
Yeah.
There you are. You're on air.
Okay. You're finding out the realities of live radio there, I see.
Yes, normally you're here to bail me out.
Well, I don't mind doing that. Now, you've ran into one of the fun situations that we've encountered several times throughout the years, and that's a no-show guest. Sometimes you just want to tear your hair out, I think, as you've said, but there's not much you can really do other than caution people, saying, please, now we've got you scheduled, please help us out and be there when we need you.
Yes, I made that call about 9:30 this morning to make sure that somebody was going to be here. So. Mm-hmm. But it's okay. I'm just laughing it off this morning, Gary. We're close to quitting time. So.
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the button there. You've just gotta go through it. Now, this demonstrates one of the things that we've always said about Native American radio is such an important element in the communication among our people, and there are always people who have talked about the quote oral tradition unquote, and this is the perfect example of how we should be communicating and taking advantage of the technology that keeps changing.
Well, I think our guest has showed up.
Oh, did they?
Yes, we've got him.
Okay,
got Mr. Nelson Harjo with the election board in here today, so.
Okay, well, go ahead and bark at him for me then.
Yeah, I will.
All right, good luck with it.
Thank you for saving me, Gary.
All right, nice dancing there. Yeah. All right.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
All right, everybody. So our guest has shown, and today we have Mr. Nelson Harjo with the election board, and just give him a second to get settled here. How are you doing today?
Fine. How are you doing today?
Good. So I talked to you a little bit last week, and we were just kind of wanting to brush on, the past elections, some numbers there. So just from kind of some basic information that I do know that we have very low voting numbers.
Yeah, out of our current registered voter population, what we've had seen, and and this is nothing new, unfortunately. Historically, our voter turnout has been very low, on the low side. For our tribe, that's something that we would definitely like to see improve. More people participating. But right now, for lack of better words, it is what it is.
Right. I think it's kind of like also a national problem, don't you think?
Yeah, we've. I do believe that if you look at this past presidential election, for example, where there was record-breaking numbers versus other presidential elections in the past, it's still very low for the amount of registered voters that there are across the country. So it's not just a Creek Nation problem; it's a voting problem in general that we're seeing for everybody.
So, do you, with your position, do you often get into like studies or research about elections?
Yeah, one of the big opportunities that we had a few years ago was whenever the Carter Center came down, and not only do they do some peer-reviewed studies, with our elections here in the United States, but they also look at how the democratic elections are held, in different parts of the world, different countries. And to be honest with you, and they'll tell you the same thing, is that out of all the studies that are out there, there's really not one really smoking gun solution to voting participation. People vote for different reasons. Those reasons vary, dramatically from individual to individual, why they do or do not participate in elections. So there's really not an easy answer. It's a really complicated issue into why people, really don't participate in something that's really their right. This is something that everybody has a right to do. And for them to not exercise that right, it's really still kind of a mystery to even the experts.
Right, like it's supposed to be kind of like something held to a standard, as an individual, for me and for people that I know. So have you ever gathered information as to why people don't vote, or have you gathered information and people have said why they don't want to vote?
We haven't done a survey yet for our citizens to ask them specifically why they don't participate or why they do participate. I do know that the election board is they have a bunch of things planned out from this point moving forward, with looking at updating our election laws, the whole 9 yards. And one of the things that has been discussed in the recent past, within this year, and even last year, was doing surveys to see how not only how we can improve our process as a election board and election office, but also just to get a general a sense of what the citizens are thinking, how our elections are going, and what improvements that they think we can make, how we do our outreaches, how we the registration process and the whole 9 yards. So I can't give you a definite date of when those things will happen, but they are going to take place, and I think they'll take place sooner than what a lot of people will expect.
So with COVID and other things these past couple years, has outreach been an issue?
It has. We had started a very aggressive campaign back in 2018 and 2019, with going out to all of our communities, to different facilities at different locations throughout our tribe. I think we did more out of state to our at-large citizen outreach than we have ever done in the past. But whenever COVID came around, it basically just really kind of shot our outreach schedule, just blew it out of the water. I mean, there was nothing we could do. Everything was shut down, no travel, things of that nature, and people weren't gathering in large numbers. So we're hoping that now that we've we've came through that part of COVID, and with this election being over with, we can start to aggressively do more outreach again and get that scheduled up again for this coming year. So we're actually making plans for that right now as we speak, getting our schedule lined out of where we're going to be, and then we'll get those announcements out to everybody so they'll know if they want to register to vote, need to update the registration. This is where we'll be. This is how we're going to do it. So that way everybody can be looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's super important because we want people to vote. And so what do you think that kind of plays in a traditional Muskogee sense as far as voting goes?
When you mean traditional, do you mean...
Is that something that's been practiced? Has that been practiced throughout history? Is that something you're aware of?
Actually, yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go way back to the beginning, to as far as we can, trace Muskogee as Muskogee peoples, I don't think we exactly had a voting process like what we would see now today. I do know we've inherited a lot of the Western style of democracy to where you're actually casting a vote for a certain person, for a certain office. Whereas back in the day, I think it was you could almost say it was kind of like a vote of no confidence, or a vote of confidence for individuals and leaders, throughout the tribe. And those guys back in the day, if they weren't making the right decisions, they could be recalled at any time just by a voice of the people saying, hey, we're not really happy with the way that you're leading us. So, if you go back through history, it was a very, very different process. And that's just not just for Muskogee Creek peoples, and, that's for a lot of different tribes, in general. This is a very brand new process to our people. We didn't start practicing these things until recently as the 1900s. Whenever we started voting in this type of fashion.
Right.
And as the voting as we do it today really didn't start back up until 1979, whenever this tribe was reestablished.
Right. And so would you say that you have issues with maybe elders or more traditional people voting? Getting them out there to vote or anything like that?
I would say... to be fair to everybody, that's one of the things that's really hard to gauge because I am not, and I don't know, and I'm not aware of anybody else that is going up to anybody which you would consider a traditional person and asking them, hey, do you participate in our elections? Hey, right. Do you do this or do that? I personally am not doing that because I don't think it should matter. It's up to the individual. I would like for everybody to vote. That's me. That's my job. But at the same time, I can't really say that I've actually went out there and and polled
and asked questions.
And asked questions about, hey,
to certain people. Yeah.
Do you participate in our ceremonial grounds? Do you consider yourself traditional? If so, do you vote as well? I don't do those types of things, and I don't think, to me, just as, and this is me speaking on my own personal view. I don't know if that would even be an appropriate thing to ask on a survey. Because I think you should just lay out. Why a person, is there something that we can do that would encourage you to vote?
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's more what we're needing, and more of what we need to know is there something that we can do different, or a different approach that we can do that would actually encourage you as an individual to cast your ballot in the next election.
So I see you got a huge stack of papers there. So you got some statistics and numbers for us today?
Yeah, I got some numbers. Okay. I haven't started working on the statistics yet. It seems like this election lasted longer than any election that I've been a part of. So we're still catching up, and the holiday breaks are right here. So there's a lot of stuff that we would normally had ready by now, but that we don't. That I'm still working on, but I do have the basic numbers if people are not aware.
Yeah.
So we had our general election that took place on November 13th. We did have 3 races that were in a runoff. Those races were for Mvskoke National Council Seat B, Mogi National Council Seat B, and Tulsa National Council Seat B. So for Mvskoke, Sandra Golden won the Mvskoke seat over Travis Scott with the vote of 2,093 for Sandra and 1,483 votes for Travis Scott, which Sandra, she won 58% of the votes cast, so she won that race. For Mogi, Nelson Harjo Sr. Got 1,970 votes. James Jennings received 1,613. So Mr. Harjo won that race with 54% of the votes cast for that race. And Leonard Gouge for Tulsa seat received 1,894 votes. And Lucian Tiger received 1,693, which Mr. Gouge won that race with receiving 52% of the votes there. So those are our winners right there. And I do believe that those 3 individuals are brand new to the council. I do believe Miss Golden was on there in some years past.
Yes.
But, this is, she'll be on there for the first time with the council as it's been made up currently, with the current, structure of the National Council. So I think they're still considering her basically brand new to the game now. I do have a lot of other numbers here. I don't know if you have time to go over all of them. It's
That's
all
a big stack of papers.
Yeah, it's and basically they're just the results from all of the voting locations.
Okay.
I can give you some accumulated totals that'll kind of narrow it down.
Well, let me ask you something. Where was your highest amount of votes cast?
That would be from the absentee.
Absentee
Yes.
was the highest?
Yes. We had 2,319 absentee votes that were cast. And there was, let's see, actually, I take that back. There was 2,300 and that would be, I'm having trouble reading my own report here. So 2319 plus 41, that's 2,360. So there's 2,360 absentee ballots that were cast. I think the next big group was with early vote with election day, which was 919 votes cast on election day.
That was in person?
Yeah, that was in person. And then early voting, early in-person voting, we had 341 people that cast the ballot. So, but by far, the biggest voting for this crop was through the absentee.
Yeah, I think I had a few family members that were like, I'm more comfortable with that just because COVID right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that you think that kind of attributed to that number being so high?
I do think so, because I take this back from the chief selection. The chief election, whether we agree with it or not, the chief election is always a little bit bigger than what we would consider like a mid-year election or off-year election. Mm-hmm. And usually the average ballots cast, through absentee for the chief election is right around this number. It's around anywhere from 2,300 to 2,500 from what I have seen. And we match that basically with this off-year election as far as absentee votes concerned. So what I gather from that is that normally would we had at high a number of absentee voters during this type of election? Probably not, but since COVID is still, for all intents and purposes, still here, people are still feeling the effects of that, they chose not to vote in person and instead cast an absentee ballot this time.
So you would have had that vote in this election, you think, had it not been for COVID, regardless?
I believe we would have had, if not the same amount of votes, maybe more, maybe a little bit less, but not to an extreme degree. But I do believe that there would have been more in-person voting,
right,
versus the absentee ballots that were cast.
So what's I haven't worked for the tribe long enough to go through a chief selection yet, so I'm kind of excited for that. What's that like?
Well, if people thought there was a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainties that came with this election, because with certain challenges, that and contests that were brought against the election, I can say that there's a very good chance that will be amplified during the Chiefs election, because, like I said earlier, whether we think it's right or wrong, for whatever reason, people are more concerned with the chief and second chief offices, there's more of a spotlight put on that versus just having some council reps that are up for election. So everybody has their own opinions on those things, and everybody has I don't know, I guess everybody believes that there's a little bit more at stake, and that's just me speculating. That's just what I've seen from these past 3 elections that I've been here for now. From what I have seen, is that everybody just kind of like the anxiety, the tension, the excitement, everything just kind of is taken up a notch or two when it comes to a chief election. So nothing at this point surprises me, So,
Surely it can't be as bad as a Biden and Trump election.
Oh, no. It won't be that bad. But I do know that as far as we're concerned here at our tribe, it's always something that's pretty exciting whenever we get ready to elect a chief.
All right, so we kind of skipped over this, and that was my fault. I kind of jumped into the questions. So what exactly is your title? You said you're the manager, right?
Yeah, my official title is manager of the election board. I don't want people to get confused by that title, because really what it means is that I just control the day-to-day operations of the election office, and I also act as basically a support mechanism for the election board when it comes to preparing and procuring things for the election. So those guys are definitely in charge. That board is definitely has the ultimate authority and oversight of our elections and how those take place. But I do support them by basically helping prepare things, making sure that everything's in place to have the elections.
So you're not actually on the board?
No.
Okay,
No.
you just manage the board.
Yes,
okay.
yeah. For all intents and purposes, I'm just basically kind of like a director.
Yeah.
And they're the board that has oversight of the whole election process.
Okay, so what do you do in your off time? Just gather data, or what's that like?
Yeah, well, for example, what we did this past year, in 2020, we went out and actually we researched and procured our own voting systems. In years past, several years past, I believe for the past 20 odd years or so, the tribe has always had agreements with vendors to come down, facilitate the elections for the board. It was over there for just basically like oversight, making sure that vendor was living up to their obligations, and that's really how our elections were held. But what we did this past year, matter of fact the past year and a half, is we researched and went out and purchased our own voting system. So now we control basically the whole entire process in-house. We have our own tabulation devices for the ballots. We have our whole poll pad system, our own database that operates those systems. So we did a lot of work behind the scenes this past year getting ready for this election. So now that we have the capability of preparing the elections ourselves all the way through, we also researched a vendor that still helps with the absentee mail-out process, because as much as we try to control everything in-house, there's still some things that any election commission or entity will do is outsource certain things for their elections, as with postage, mailers, things of that nature. So we went out and we basically just kind of changed our whole MO of how we get these elections set up, how we facilitate the elections. So believe it or not, we did do a lot of work this past year. And those are the types of things that we do in between the elections. We just basically look for ways to improve the next election and to improve our voter outreach.
Well, sounds like you guys are staying innovative over there for sure. So what's the next election, the CA?
The next election will be for principal chief and second chief and national council seats A. Right now, that election will be scheduled for the third Saturday in September in 2023. So people think that, the elections are a long ways off, but these past 2 years to me have, went by super fast. I don't know, what the next couple of years will be, but I just know it'll be here quicker than what people realize.
Oh, yeah, and you have to just keep, like you said, staying innovative, come up with ways to make it as safe and accurate as possible.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like you deal with a lot of numbers for sure.
Yeah, we do. We are going to be posting numbers probably here in the next, I would say, sometime, mid-January, at the end of January, of what, we're looking at as far as, participation from this election versus, maybe the last CB election, out of this percentage, of our total voting population, how many people actually participated, things like that, how many out-of-state voters, cast the ballot, how many in-state, how many inside the reservation. We'll start coming out with all of those numbers to just give people a picture of who's participating in our elections.
Well, I'm excited to see those numbers, very interested. And what is the total number of registered voters compared to the total number of votes that we got this election?
I can tell off the top of my head, the last time that we compiled our total amount of registered voters, that number was just a hair over 18,000. Mm-hmm. I'm talking like 18,067, registered voters. Out of that, we had 3,620 people that cast the ballot, out of that 18,000 people.
Wow.
So that number is, it is low. We want that number, naturally we want that number to get bigger. And that's something that I think we'll always continuously work on until the end of times, to get our voter participation up and to get our total registered voter, numbers up as well.
Yeah, I mean, like you said earlier, it's just a national problem. It's a voting problem. And, of course, we would like every single citizen to vote.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So do you have some contact information if somebody wants to get registered to vote, wants information on it, website, whatever?
Yeah, we do. Our office number is 918-732-7631. Our email address is election@mcn-election.com. Our fax number, I don't know our fax number off the top of my head, but if you call us or if you email us, we can help you out with whatever it is you're needing to help with. I mean, we even answer phone calls for how do I get, hold of citizenship, things like that. So you just give us a call. We'll help you out however we can.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you making time for us today and sharing these facts with us. But I got about a minute left, so I'm going to get out of here.
All right. Happy holidays, everybody.
All right, guys. I really appreciate you tuning in with me and bearing with me today during my crisis. And I think we're about to get out of here.
You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.